Tonight, the historic price surges with costs rising across the country on so many things we buy every day. Inflation soaring 6.8% in November, the fastest pace in nearly 40 years. Costs skyrocketing for rent, food, gas, cars, clothing, and so much more. President Biden maintaining the crisis has hit its peak. What's causing it and how much longer will it last? Also tonight, the key Supreme Court ruling delivering a partial victory to challengers of Texas's strict abortion law, but leaving the law in place for now. Where the battle goes next. The Omicron variant now in at least half of the U.S. The new CDC report what it found regarding Omicron symptoms and the strict new mask mandate in New York, one of several states facing a potential winter surge. The major winter storm on the move and 35 million under threat of severe weather and potential tornadoes. The Delta flight diverted after an unruly passenger allegedly attacked a flight attendant at an air marshal. The video from inside the airplane. Honoring Bob Dole, President Biden, and Tom Hanks among those paying final tributes at services today. From trees to T-shirts inside the fashion industry's role in harming the rainforest.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening. We got one of those government reports today that tells you it's not just you. Things are still getting more expensive. Inflation biting consumers hard, right smack in the middle of the holiday buying season. Consumer prices rose in November compared to a year ago by almost 7%. That's the highest annual inflation jump since June of 1982. Gasoline led the way, up 58%. But virtually everything was up, from cars to food, electricity, and housing. The trend is forcing some pretty tough conversations in many American households about making ends meet. President Biden offering vague reassurances that things will right themselves soon. It's where we start tonight with Chief White House correspondent Kristen Welker.
Tonight, Americans already slammed by soaring prices, now getting hit even harder. New numbers showing inflation surging to its fastest pace in nearly 40 years, up 6.8% from a year ago.
I feel like there's never enough money.
Christy Brown, a teacher and single mom, telling us she's struggling to pay higher rent, plus $150 more a month for groceries, buy winter clothes for her kids, and now they need a new car.
What's the toughest part for you about dealing with these increased prices every day?
I think it's telling my kids that they can't do things that they want to do.
Prices rising across the board, including gas prices up 58% over last year, fuel oil up 59%, beef up 21%, and used cars up 31%. All of it during the holidays. Dion King says his family has cut out restaurants and vacations and will celebrate Christmas without gifts this year because they cannot afford them.
The prices has gone up dramatically. It's just not in our budget to even go out and do anything for the holiday season of this Christmas.
And the spiking prices not only affecting families.
Our tomatoes were up 40% from 2-3 weeks ago. Our red onions were up 35%. And our guacamole, our avocado, was up 35%.
At Louis Hankins' restaurant, El Techo, higher costs and the supply chain crisis forcing him to take items off the menu.
When you look at these increase in prices, what is your biggest fear?
My main concern is the customer coming. With gas prices rising and everything else across the board rising, are they going to make money available in their budget to come and have tacos and margaritas?
Tonight, the Senate's top Republican blasting Democrats for, quote, more borrowing, more printing, more reckless spending, saying inflation is out of control on the Democrats' watch. But with gas prices down 8 cents in the last month, President Biden today touting progress.
It's a real bump in the road. It does affect families. It matters to people when you're paying more for gas, although in some states we've got the price down below $3 a gallon. But the point is, it's not gone down quickly enough. But I think it will.
And Kristen, the president today also saying he thinks this is the peak of the crisis.
Well, Lester, while that may be the president's view, White House officials acknowledge they cannot predict how long this inflation will last. Though today they said they are going to apply pressure to some industries, including meat packers, to try to lower prices. Lester.
Kristen Walker at the White House. Thank you. Another major story we're following tonight, the partial victory for opponents of the Texas law banning most abortions. The Supreme Court saying abortion providers can challenge the law in federal court, but for now leaving it in effect. Here's Pete Williams with more.
It's a modest victory for supporters of abortion rights and a minor setback for Texas, which tried to make SB 8 impossible to challenge. The law bans most abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy and allows anyone to sue abortion providers that violate it. State officials don't enforce it, so who can be sued? The Supreme Court ruled unanimously that challengers of the law cannot sue state court judges since they don't enforce anything. With Chief Justice Roberts and the court's 3 liberals dissenting, it ruled 5-4 that the challengers cannot sue state court clerks or the Texas Attorney General either. But it voted 8-1, with only Clarence Thomas dissenting, that the challengers can sue members of the state medical board, just barely enough to let the lawsuits go ahead. Even so, the court said the state can keep enforcing the law while the legal challenges play out.
I think this is going to go down as one of the most disgraceful decisions in Supreme Court history. It has allowed the state of Texas right now to nullify the Supreme Court's decisions that there's a constitutional right to abortion.
So abortion providers can still challenge the Texas law in federal court, but they cannot sue anyone who actually has the power to stop enforcing it.
I'm not sure that the Supreme Court's decision today provides them with the relief that they're seeking because it doesn't provide them with an avenue to have this law stopped on the ground.
Today's ruling was about the structure of the Texas law, not about abortion rights. A ruling about that in a separate case from Mississippi probably won't come for several more months. Lester?
All right, Pete, thank you. Now to the COVID crisis. The CDC saying today the Omicron variant has been found in at least 25 states and that the first cases were mostly mild and overwhelmingly among the vaccinated. Also, New York imposing a new statewide mask mandate as fears grow of a winter surge. Miguel Almaguer has more.
As a new wave of COVID infections cascades across the country, the U.S. is now barreling toward unprecedented benchmarks. In the coming days, our nation will top 50 million cases. And as hospitalizations soar a staggering 40%, the grimmest milestone, 800,000 American deaths, is now near.
COVID pneumonia? COVID pneumonia. Are they prone? They are prone.
Tonight, one of the greatest threats is in New Hampshire. The state with one of the lowest vaccination rates in the region now has the highest number of cases per capita.
Our emergency rooms often have 50 to 60 people waiting. We often have upwards of 20 people waiting for admission in the emergency room.
As the National Guard deploys to Maine, today New York's governor re-implementing an indoor mask mandate with exceptions.
We're entering a time of uncertainty where our cases could escalate beyond control.
All of this comes as our nation battles Delta and learns more about Omicron. Today, the CDC releasing new details about the 43 cases in 25 states. Most of those with confirmed infections are young. Nearly 80% were fully vaccinated, some with boosters. And with no deaths, among the most promising sign, symptoms were commonly reported as cough, fatigue, congestion, or a runny nose.
Do what we know works against this virus. Vaccines work, boosting works, testing works, masking works, physical distancing works, washing our hands work, and proper ventilation works.
Tonight, new insight into Omicron as Delta still devastates pockets of the nation. Miguel Almaguer, NBC News.
A horrific accident has killed dozens of migrants packed inside a semi-truck in Mexico, part of the ongoing flood of people making the dangerous journey to cross the U.S. border. We get more from Guad Venegas.
A chaotic and deadly scene in the Mexican state of Chiapas. At least 55 people killed and over 100 injured when the truck they were crammed into crashed on its side. Survivors say it happened on a sharp curve. Today, Mexican officials say victims are migrants from several Latin American countries. Mexico's president asking the U.S. to offer more legal opportunities for migrants. This as thousands risk their life traveling to the U.S. border, overwhelming Border Patrol agents. In Yuma, Arizona, the mayor now declaring a local emergency with thousands of migrants streaming into the city.
It became a situation that wasn't containable.
This week, under court order, the Biden administration restarting the Remain in Mexico policy, which mandates asylum seekers wait in Mexico. Mexican officials tell us that move mistakenly led many asylum-seeking migrants to think it benefits them.
For some people, it sort of sends a message that the U.S. is going to receive people.
And tonight, federal and state authorities are searching for the driver of the truck who fled the scene. Lester?
Juan Venegas at the border tonight. Thank you. This evening, a pair of federal air marshals are being credited with stopping the latest in a series of dangerous in-flight incidents after breaking their cover and intervening on board a Delta flight. We get more now from Tom Costello.
It happened on board Delta Flight 342, D.C. to LAX. The FBI says 2 air marshals broke their cover to detain an unruly passenger after he allegedly assaulted a flight attendant, then one of the air marshals who handcuffed him.
Stop resisting. Stop resisting.
The plane diverted to Oklahoma City, where police arrested 35-year-old Ariel Pennington. After a year of unruly, even dangerous behavior on board planes, the FAA says bad behavior is declining, but they had 5,500 reports so far this year alone. The Attorney General recently ordered federal prosecutors to prioritize crimes that occur on board planes. And air marshals are teaching flight attendants self-defense tactics. But when they're undercover and witness bad behavior, they face a difficult choice. Air marshals who train in mock-ups like this must decide whether that disturbance might really be meant to distract them from a hijacking attempt. TSA Chief Admiral David Pekoski. When should an air marshal get involved and intervene to stop this kind of activity?
We have protocols for air marshals breaking cover and intervening in a situation like this, and these are well exercised protocols between the cabin crew, the flight attendants, and the air marshals.
Interfering with a flight crew can bring up to 20 years in prison and fines of up to $250,000. Over Oklahoma, a pair of air marshals decided they had to intervene. Tom Costello, NBC News, Chicago.
In just 60 seconds, tracking that massive winter storm where it is headed tonight, and our eye-opening report on the cost of the clothes we wear on one of nature's wonders. A major winter storm is on the move tonight across much of the country. Winter weather alerts are up across 17 states, stretching for nearly 1,500 miles. Up to a foot of snow expected in the upper Midwest and to the south. 35 million under the risk tonight of severe weather with the potential for tornadoes. Now to our series, Rescuing the Rainforest. Tonight, in partnership with the Pulitzer Center's Rainforest Investigations Network, we look into a fabric you've probably never heard of, but is in many of the clothes we wear. It's often billed as eco-friendly, but critics say it's putting the environment at risk. Stephanie Gosk investigates.
It's sleek, silky, and most importantly, cheap. Viscose rayon, one of the fastest growing fabrics in fashion in t-shirts, sportswear, and dresses. Marketed as eco-friendly because it comes from renewable trees. But environmental geographer Ruth DeFries explains that to make way for the tree farms that provide much of the world's viscose, vast stretches of rainforest were cut down.
If you fly over, say, Southeast Asia, you will see these vast plantations that have one single tree species in them. And that's a very, very different from a diverse rainforest, which has millions of species and habitat for lots and lots of different kinds of plants and animals.
These images show how the Indonesian rainforest was decimated, especially in the early 2000s, to help produce palm oil, paper, and viscose.
RGE is an $18 billion group of companies focused
One of the biggest players in the viscose business is Royal Golden Eagle, RGE, a global industrial group. They've supplied viscose to a host of companies, including Adidas, Abercrombie & Fitch, and Esprit, according to an NBC News review of corporate disclosures. None of those retailers commented for our story.
The renewable plantations that underpin its core fiber businesses.
Back in 2015, RGE pledged to halt deforestation and has made significant progress. But according to experts in Norway and Indonesia who track deforestation, these satellite images show some clearing of the rainforest may have continued. Edward Boyda is a physicist and co-founder of the environmental research NGO Earthrise. He analyzed images for an area totaling 4,200 square miles, controlled by companies that supply wood for RGE's Viscose. He estimates at least 30 square miles of rainforest have been cleared since late 2015.
We can get imagery from 2015 where we can see healthy rainforest. We look again, say 2016 or 17, some later year, and we see signs that that forest has been destroyed. Looking later still, we can see the plantations for the pulpwood being put in place. And you've gone from one of the most bio-rich places in the world to what's essentially like a biological desert.
RGE company April said in a statement to NBC News the vast majority of the land identified by Boyda had no deforestation, but rather normal legal plantation harvesting and replanting and small-scale community agriculture. The company acknowledged a small amount of deforestation on land that it said had been encroached or damaged by third parties. Johnny Spedica lives next to a large viscose plantation that supplies RGE and says there have been fires and flooding ever since the surrounding rainforest was destroyed in the years leading up to 2015. It used to be easy to hunt pigs for food, he told us. Not anymore. Back in the U.S., concerns about the environment have driven some fashion brands to find alternatives to viscose.
Mara Hoffman's made the decision to move away from viscose.
Yeah. Dana Davis is vice president of sustainability for the designer Mara Hoffman.
This is made from 100% recycled cotton.
Oh, wow. So
right?
This was something else before it became these pants.
Exactly.
The reality is for most shoppers, there's such an enormous disconnect from grabbing something off the rack to the rainforests in Indonesia.
Yeah, I think that's with most things that people do, right? They don't stop to really think through where that might come from.
Where it comes from, the impact on the rainforest and the people who live there. Stephanie Gosk, NBC News.
All right, we're back in a moment with the moving tributes to Bob Dole, how he was remembered today. An emotional tribute today for Bob Dole. President Biden and both parties coming together for the funeral of the longtime senator and former GOP presidential nominee. And moving words from Tom Hanks and our own Savannah Guthrie. Here's Andrea Mitchell.
At Washington's National Cathedral, a celebration to honor the long life of Robert J. Dole.
God, what courage Bob Dole had.
Grievously wounded in battle, but resilient. A political warrior who believed in compromise. Mentor to a freshman Democrat named Joe Biden.
We disagreed, but we were never disagreeable with one another. I found Bob to be a man of principle, pragmatism, and enormous integrity.
His wife of nearly 46 years, former senator and cabinet member Elizabeth Dole, a storied love affair for the ages, and daughter from a previous marriage, Robin.
I love you, Dad. I promise you will never walk alone.
His casket then driven to the World War II memorial he helped create. A memorial to peace, he said, and to the 500,000 soldiers unlike him who did not return.
He was never able again to button a shirt or sign his name as he had. He saluted and he made your acquaintance with his left hand.
Family friend Savannah Guthrie.
He stood for principle. He stood for dignity. And even when he couldn't stand any longer, at the casket of an old friend who could forget, still he stood, out of respect and out of honor.
Taps is now sounding for this soldier of America. But we know, as long as we see each other not as enemies, but as neighbors and colleagues, then taps will never sound for Bob Dole.
Tonight, an American patriot flying home to Kansas. Andrea Mitchell, NBC News, Washington.
When we come back, why city officials in California tried to pull the plug on one fan's light show tribute to a holiday classic. Finally, the holiday lights display inspired by a classic Christmas movie and how the fight that erupted over it ended up bringing a town together. Here's Kevin Tibbles.
When the happiest holidays hit La Mirada, California, out come all things Griswold.
My reaction was, oh my God, this is awesome. He did a fabulous job.
Lights, cameras, lots of action as folks celebrate one neighbor's love for National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, from the cop car to the motorhome.
I'm actually probably one of the biggest collectors on the planet of this movie, so I have a lot of memorabilia.
But this year's display was almost unplugged by the city, as Norton, seeking to recreate the Griswold house, built this false second floor without a permit.
I mean, it's a Christmas display. It's a facade. It's not real.
Visitors started leaving donations to help battle the supposed Scrooge of Christmas presents.
They should definitely make an exception.
A happy ending, though. The spirit of Christmas prevailed when the two sides reached an agreement, and his $100,000 display can light up the holidays till January 1st.
And we're going to have the happiest Christmas.
Kevin Tibbles, NBC News.
Honoring a classic. That's Nightly News for this Friday. Thanks for watching. I'm Lester Holt. Please take care of yourself and each other. Good night. Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.